So welcome back. We're looking at the Grave Mage. We've gone through levels 1 through 4. As I mentioned in the last video, we don't see a lot of necromancy stuff yet. We're going to see that now in this video, but not yet. First, we're just going to go to level 5, and at this point, again, we're just kind of a standard wizard. But let's face it, a wizard at level 5 is still pretty good. So the big thing that happens at 5th level, of course, is the addition of 3rd level spells. So I'm going to add 2 3rd level spells to this character. First one is going to be Counterspell. Pretty much every wizard. We're going to grab Counterspell either at this level or next level. We're just going to grab it at this level with this character. The second one I'm going to take is we want a big gun spell. And normally what we look at are things like Hypnotic Pattern or Fear. Fear is a necromancy spell. But again, this character gets no bonus for using necromancy spells. So there's no bonus for them to use the Fear spell. Or Sleet Storm, or those kinds of things. What I'm going to do with this character is I'm going to take Fireball. Because Fireball, strangely enough, is a spell that I get a significant boost with because I'm a Necromancer, because of Grim Harvest. Because Fireball covers a huge area, and it is a spell known for being able to take down minions, especially right at 5th level. Now, whenever we do that, we regain 6 hit points, and we might be able to do that several times with the same spell, because if you hit 10 minions with a Fireball and 5 of them go down, then technically you can heal up to 30 hit points. So when it comes to big gun spells, Fireball makes a lot of sense, actually, for a Necromancer, even if it's not exactly what you would picture for a Necromancer. But I talked about this a lot in my Optimizing Your Character Concept video. When a Necromancer casts a Fireball, I'm not envisioning an orange ball of flame. I'm envisioning greenish, sickly flame bursting out from an area. Make your spells appropriate for your theme. Don't make your theme fit around your spells. So at this point, as I mentioned, at 4th level, we didn't necessarily need Pyrotechnics prepared yet. So let's unprepare it, then we can prepare both our Counterspell and our Fireball at 5th level. So at 5th level, this, again, it doesn't feel too much like a Necromancer. It feels like a wizard. We're casting fireballs and counterspells and webs. So this is basically not really necromancy centered at all. And the only ability we're getting through Necromancer, other than the ability to describe necromancy spells a little faster, is the ability to heal ourselves when we kill things with spells, which we're doing primarily with the Fireball spell. Again, doesn't feel a lot like a Necromancer. I didn't write the rules, but we're going to feel like a Necromancer very soon. We're going to go to level 6. So level 6 gives us Undead Thralls. So at 6th level, you add the Animate Dead spell to your spellbook if it's not there already. There was no reason for me to take it at 5th level. I didn't get any boosts with it, so I might as well just hold off and get it for free at 6th level when I do get boosts with it. When you cast Animate Dead, you can target 1 additional corpse or pile of bones, creating another zombie or skeleton as appropriate. So we're twinning this spell, right? We're getting double the effect of this spell. Whenever you create an undead using the necromancy spell, it has additional benefits. Creature's hit point maximum is increased by an amount equal to your wizard level. So for us right now, that means 6 additional hit points. The creature adds your proficiency bonus to its weapon damage rolls. Doesn't add it to its attack rolls. So don't expect your undead servants to hit a lot in combat, but when they hit, they will do reasonable damage. So we're getting a lot here. We're doubling the effect of an Animate Dead spell, and we're improving the effect of each version of that Animate Dead spell. So we definitely want to be using our 3rd level slots on Animate Dead right now. This is going to make a significant difference to this character. And finally, we are now going to feel like a Necromancer. So as mentioned, we're going to get Animate Dead, and that's a free spell with our 6th level ability. Then we're going to pick 2 additional 3rd level spells. Yeah, I'm not going to surprise you. I'll take Lehman's Tiny Hut because we only have 1 more preparation at this level, and we're already going to be preparing Animate Dead, so we want to definitely have a ritual here. Lehman's Tiny Hut is a good way to add a ritual. And as I mentioned, we want to get our pyrotechnics back in play at some point here. So preparations are actually a problem. So I considered slow here because it's a way to cast a spell in combat that is going to preclude friendly fire, but actually, I think we're better off taking yet another ritual here. Now, we have a couple options. We could take Water Breathing, which I think is a really strong ritual. We could take Phantom Steed, which I think is a pretty useful ritual as well. And I'm going to take the Phantom Steed. It's going to give me great movement in combat. So if I cast this as a ritual, and then I have 100-foot movement, it's going to give me great versatility on the battlefield. Or I could have one of my undead mount it, or another party member mount it. So Phantom Steed, I think, is a pretty good ritual for this character. Now, let's talk a little bit about Animate Dead. So Animate Dead is a minute to cast. So this is not a combat spell. This is something we're going to cast probably right at the beginning of the day. And it creates an undead servant. Choose a pile of bones or a corpse of medium or small humanoid within range. If you choose the pile of bones, you're going to get a skeleton. If you choose the corpse, you're going to get a zombie. There's certain advantages to each of those. Your spell imbues the target with a foul mimicry of life, raising it as an undead creature. Target becomes a skeleton if you choose bones, or zombie if you choose a corpse. On each of your turns, you can use a bonus action to mentally command any creature you made with this spell if the creature is within 60 feet of you. If you control multiple creatures, you can command any or all of them at the same time. This is important because we're going to have more than one creature guaranteed, issuing the same command to each one. You can decide what action the creature will take and where it will move during its next turn, or you can issue a general command, such as to guard a particular chamber or corridor. If you issue no commands, the creature only defends itself against hostile creatures. Once given an order, the creature continues to follow it until the task is complete. The creature is under your control for 24 hours, after which it stops obeying any command you've given it. To maintain control of the creature for another 24 hours, you must cast this spell on the creature again before the current 24-hour period ends. So what this normally means is we finish our adventuring day, we take another long rest. At the end of the long rest, this is coming due, we cast it again, maintain our control. This use of the spell reasserts your control over up to 4 creatures you have animated with this spell, rather than animating a new one. So this is important too, because let's say we cast Animate Dead 3 times. So we cast it and we get 6 undead creatures. Then we use our Arcane Recovery, and then we cast it a 4th time. So now we have 8 undead creatures. We only need to cast Animate Dead twice now to maintain those 4 creatures. Then technically speaking, we could use those other 2 spell slots on fireballs or counterspells or more Animate Deads. If we're using all 3 of our spell slots at the beginning of the day to reassert control, then that's 12 undead we could maintain with this spell, and still be able to use our Arcane Recovery to recover a 3rd level slot that we could cast for something else. Also, this spell scales well. When you cast a spell using the spell slot of 4th level or higher, you animate or reassert control over 2 additional undead creatures for each spell slot above level 3. Each of the creatures must come from a different corpse or pile of bones. So what you might be seeing is we could potentially get a lot of undead creatures going at the same time, and that's exactly the case. So let's look at the undead creatures we have to choose from. So the first one we have is the skeleton. Both the skeleton and the zombie are quarter challenge rating. Skeleton, I actually find, is going to be more convenient, because what you can do is, as you come across, I mean, who hasn't done a dungeon in Dungeons and Dragons where they're finding bodies of poor adventurers and they've been reduced to skeletal remains? You can pile up those bones, throw it on your Tensor's floating disc or in the barbarian's backpack, and you can save them, and they're not going to take nearly as much room as an actual dead body like a zombie would need. The other advantage of a skeleton over a zombie is a skeleton can actually do a ranged attack. Under actions, we can see that a skeleton can use a short sword or a short bow. Now, theoretically, they could potentially use other weapons as well, but by law, that means that you have to provide them a short sword or a short bow in order for them to make attacks. So collect a lot of short bows. Give your skeleton short bows. Skeletons are a ranged attack creature. Their short bow attack is +4 to hit for 1d6 plus 2 piercing damage. But remember that we are adding our proficiency bonus to that damage. So right now it's 1d6 plus 5 points of damage. So if we consider how many skeletons we might have, and we talked about theoretically having 12, but let's say even we have 4. That's 4 attacks for 1d6 plus 5 points of damage per round at range. That is significant. And +4 to hit isn't that bad. Now the disadvantage of a skeleton is you got 13 hit points. Now because we are Necromancer, we're going to add our level. So at 6th level, we're looking at 19 hit points. That's still not super tough, but it probably is going to require more than a single hit from most enemies to take one down. But again, we want to position our skeletons so they're doing ranged attacks, so hopefully they're not going to be taking a lot of attacks from enemies. So at the beginning of the combat, we're going to use a bonus action. We're going to command our skeletons to attack the enemies with arrows. And then we shouldn't need to spend another bonus action until we need to change that command. So on following rounds, we probably won't need to spend a bonus action unless we need them to do something different. Our skeletons can move around with us. They have movement speed of 30. Now what about healing? Because this is something that a lot of people wonder. How do you heal your skeletons when you're a necromancer? Well, the first thing is you're not going to be able to heal them with things like cure wounds spells. Just can't be done. Also, if you do necrotic damage to them, they take damage. Skeletons aren't immune to necrotic damage, never mind get healing from necrotic damage. So if you do necrotic damage to your skeletons, you will kill them. So how does a skeleton even heal? Well, they heal the same way that all creatures in the game heal, through resting. So Jeremy Crawford tweeted about this, about how undead can heal from taking a short rest, just like any other creature can. So when our party takes a short rest, our skeletons can take a short rest too. And our skeletons have 2 hit dice that are d8s that they can use. When they take a long rest, they heal too, just like the rest of us do. They're going to recover all their hit points and half the hit dice that they spent the day before. But you know what? Don't worry about it. If your skeleton dies, it dies. What you want to do is, dead skeleton, well, that's now a pile of bones. Grab the pile of bones. Next day when you cast Animate Dead, you got your pile of bones you need. So overall, I really like the skeleton as a choice for Animate Dead. That movement speed allows them to keep up with the rest of the party. That ranged attack allows them to stay out of dangerous situations, and we can really boost our offense with them. But that doesn't mean that the zombie's a terrible choice. The first thing to acknowledge with the zombie is we're going to need a dead body that's not a skeleton. That might be harder to achieve. Now, when you get something like a bag of holding, might be easier. You could throw dead bodies in there. But in general, I would consider it more difficult to get the required component for a zombie. One advantage of the zombie is hit points. You're going to get 22 starting hit points. So with a 6th level caster, that's looking at 28 hit points. That's not too bad for a 6th level. Zombie also gets Undead Fortitude. That means if you reduce it to 0 hit points, it's going to get a saving throw, and it may not go down at all. This is a great way for our zombies to just gain some staying power that the skeletons didn't have. Zombies also don't have that vulnerability to bludgeoning damage that a skeleton has. So in terms of durability, zombies are a lot better than the skeleton. In terms of offense, it's worse. You get no ranged attack, and your melee attack is worse. It's a +3 to hit for d6 +1 damage. Still, we're going to boost that with our proficiency bonus. Not a great chance to hit, but reasonable damage. If we throw enough zombies into combat, that's still going to be a big offensive boost for the party. One thing that can be difficult with the practicality for the zombie is the movement speed. Movement speed of 20 means that the zombies are likely going to be moving slower than the rest of the party, and that can be a pain in the neck. But then again, maybe we can put one of them on our Tensor's floating disc, maybe we can put one of them on a Phantom Steed. So there are things we might be able to do, or maybe we just move at the movement speed of 20. We might already have party members that are reduced to a 25-foot movement. In fact, if we have characters wearing heavy armor who don't have the strength for it, we might already be reduced to 20-foot movement. Might not be the end of the world. So I could certainly see at least taking one zombie. And remember, the zombie is the one who's going to go into melee, which means it can be the one to carry the torch, which means it can be the one you can use as your platform for your pyrotechnic spell. So although I would probably center more on skeletons than zombies, that doesn't mean I'm not going to do zombies at all. So when you use Animate Dead, that sometimes can cause some gameplay problems because you have a lot of creatures on the battlefield and you don't want to be doing 5 or 6 different turns on the same round when all the other PCs and the players are only getting 1 turn because they don't get to do anything. So what I would recommend is when you use a necromancer like this and you are going to be having a bunch of undead on the battlefield, make sure to give the other players a chance to be involved. So what you would do is, let's say you create 4 undead. Then what I would probably do is I would hand out at least 3 of them, maybe all 4 of them, to other players to control. So then you use your bonus action to give them commands, but then when their turn comes around, another player is going to be doing the die rolls and the damage rolls and that kind of thing. And then it keeps them involved in the gameplay, and it's going to be less disruptive to your gameplay than if you were to control all of them, because this is something that can cause a problem with not just necromancers but also summoners as well, and that to me is the easiest way to take care of that. Is once you get the other players involved, once everyone is having fun with it, then it doesn't become disruptive to gameplay like as if you were going to control them all by yourself. So when we're talking about prepared spells, obviously I definitely want to prepare Animate Dead, and it's probably going to be the 3rd level spell I'm going to be casting more than any of the others, and it's reasonable that you might even want to cast it with all your 3rd level slots. The difficulty there, and something to consider, are area of effect spells. Because zombies and skeletons don't have a huge number of hit points, you get hit with a fireball, they could reasonably be destroyed with just that fireball. How do we prevent that from happening? Well, if we have one spell slot available for a counter spell, we could potentially prevent that from happening. So I think keeping one spell slot for another 3rd level spell is still a good idea, even though we're getting a huge bang out of our animate dead spells. But Lehman's Tiny Hut and Phantom Steed, wonderful thing is we're not going to have to prepare either of those spells. But what I do want to do is I want to prepare pyrotechnics now. So I want to probably look at maybe unpreparing Fireball. I'm probably not going to have the spell slot to use it. We got our animate deads and then the counter spell. So if we finish an adventuring day and we didn't end up using the counter spell and we have a spell slot available, then cast another animate dead spell. And then what that's going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to prepare our pyrotechnics. Because our pyrotechnics is using a 2nd level slot, we're going to have more resources available for casting it. So what ends up happening at 6th level is now our character is far more centered on doing damage than before. And we're doing damage through our undead. Because if we, say, cast 2 animate deads, that's still 4 animated deads. It's 4 attacks around we're getting with those animated deads. And they do reasonable damage when they hit. And it's only using our bonus action to command them, so we can use our action for other things on the round. That might be sitting our enemies in a web spell, or it might, if we just want to save spell slots, be a cantrip. So let's move ahead to 7th level. So we're going to get our access to our 4th level spells at this point. And there's 2 spells that I definitely want to take here. The first one I want to take is Autoluke's Resilient Sphere. And then the second one I want to take, of course, is Polymorph. But Autoluke's Resilient Sphere I want to talk about. Because remember that our Grovel, Cower, and Beg ability requires us to be within 10 feet of our enemy. And I mentioned that might not always be a safe place to be. With Autoluke's Resilient Sphere, it sure is. We can go right into the middle of the enemies, do an Autoluke's Resilient Sphere, and we are safe. Then we can command our undead to attack. We can use our Grovel, Cower, and Beg. They can all get advantage on those attacks. Remember, undead don't have a great bonus to attack. So that advantage would mean quite a bit. Plus all our allies benefit from it as well. So I think that would work reasonably well. Also, sometimes we just need a defensive spell. Autoluke's Resilient Sphere is a strong defensive spell. We also have the versatility to use it offensively. Not as good offensively. They get a saving throw. If they make it, nothing happens. But if they fail that saving throw, it does lock them down effectively. Finally, if we want to, and we are in an Autoluke's Resilient Sphere, we can technically move it at half our movement speed. So I think this is a good spell for this character. So we're definitely picking up Autoluke's Resilient Sphere. Polymorph shouldn't be any surprise, but just keep in mind that we don't want to be casting Polymorph on our undead creatures because we're using the challenge rating of those creatures, so you can only polymorph them into quarter challenge rating creatures. So we don't want to do that. We want to be using Polymorph on allies. So it's time to unprepare something, and I would say this is a point where I'd probably get rid of Web. And then we're going to be able to prepare 2 additional spells, and we'll prepare both Autoluke's Resilient Sphere and Polymorph. Now, at 7th level, would I use 4th level spells for Animate Dead? Probably not. Remember, we are actually getting less from scaling than other subclasses are. So going from 2 to 4 is actually less of a boost for us than going from 1 to 3. But if I ended a day and I hadn't cast my 4th level slots yet, which is entirely possible, then I would definitely consider doing an Animate Dead just to get those pile of bones up, because remember that maintaining costs less than creating. So we can use our 4th level slots to create, and then we can use our 3rd level slots to maintain. So when we move to level 8, now we're going to start boosting our intelligence score. So boosting our intelligence score, number 1, it's going to give us more spell preparations, and we've had trouble with spell preparations now. Remember, we're an intelligence bonus behind what would have happened if we had played a character with a bonus to intelligence. And the second thing is that we are improving things like our spell DCs. And you'll notice this character isn't all about using undead. We are using these spells in combinations with other spells, with combinations with the pyrotechnics. And these spells are giving a DC, so this is going to boost the ability of those spells, even though it doesn't boost our undead. So we're going to be able to prepare 2 new spells here. So let's go ahead and take 2 spells that are going to require preparation, but we're not necessarily going to need a lot. Something maybe more utility based. And then we gave up control with Web. So let's take something also control based. So Watery Sphere is our control based spell. very strong control spell. And the nice thing about Watery Sphere is once we cast it, we can use our action every round to use it without using more spell slots. The other one I'll take is Arcane Eye, which is a very nice utility spell, and it's somewhat circumstantial, so it's there when you need it. So we can prepare both these spells, so we're going to do so. And when it comes to our tactics, not a lot has changed. Our big gun is Polymorph, though we may use Autoluke's Resilient Sphere for defense or as ability to get advantage for our allies without taking damage ourselves, but we're relying heavily on our Undead at this point for an offensive punch. That brings us to level 9. So at level 9 we get our 5th level spells. Yeah, I'm going to take Wall of Force, this shouldn't be a surprise. One thing I'm going to take that I normally wouldn't take is I'm going to take Danse Macabre. Is that how it's pronounced? Danse Macabre. So now we're taking an actual necromancy spell. Threads of dark power leap from your fingers to pierce up to 5 small or medium corpses you can see within range. Remember, we may be carrying those around with us. Each corpse immediately stands up and becomes undead. You can decide whether it's a zombie or a skeleton. The statistics for zombies and skeletons are in the monster manual, and it gains bonus to attack and damage rolls equal to your spellcasting ability modifier. Now, this is in addition to what we get with undead thralls. So with Undead Thralls, yeah, we get our additional Undead when we cast Animate Dead, but whenever we use any Necromancy spell to create Undead, then that Undead gets that bonus to hit points and the bonus to damage equal to our proficiency modifier. That's an addition here. We're also going to get our intelligence bonus to attack and damage for these Undead. You can use bonus action to mentally command the creatures you make with a spell, just like with Animate Dead. And that's just like Animate Dead. I'm not going to repeat myself. The creatures are under your control until the spell ends, after which they become inanimate once more. This is a concentration spell, and it is a 1-action casting. So we can cast it in the middle of combat. We can get 5 creatures immediately within a 60-foot range. We can concentrate on the spell for up to an hour, so we're potentially getting them for multiple combats. And remember, these are going to be tougher than the skeletons you create with your Animate Dead, because we're also adding our intelligence bonus, which is a +3 right now, to attack and damage. So that would give them a +7 to hit. And the damage right now, I mean, our proficiency bonus just went to +4, so we got D8 +2, +4 for our proficiency bonus, plus another 3 from our intelligence bonus. So that's D6 +9 damage per hit, with +7 to hit for 5 different creatures. Again, that's a huge offensive boost, and considering we're already likely having Animate Dead in the same combat, we could have now a lot of creatures. That's a lot of attacks. Let's just say, let's be conservative. Let's say we have 8 skeletons on the go with Animate Dead. That's easy at this level. And then we have 5 more come up with this. We're talking about 13 additional attacks per round. That's more than we're getting with inanimate objects, except we're getting far more versatility here. So we're really now feeling like a necromancer, because not only can we raise the dead at the beginning of the day using our animate dead, but now with Danse Macabre we can use a spell in combat to raise even more undead, and they're enhanced even further. And I've talked about using attacks with these, but let's not forget that if you want to use your bonus action to command them, remember you can command them to do different things with the same bonus action. We can do things like have them do the help action. We can have them do things like grapple enemies. We could have them try to shove enemies. So it's not like we're restricted to just attacks, though attacks is probably what I would do most of the time because we have boosted those significantly. So all those attacks for all that damage is huge. So let's move to level 10. Level 10 we get our Necromancer ability, which is Inure to Death. Beginning at 10th level you have resistance to necrotic damage, which is okay. Your hit point maximum can't be reduced, which is okay. You've spent so much time dealing with undead and the forces that animate them that you become Inure to Death of some of their worst effects. And again, these are okay abilities, but they're not really going to affect our tactics with this character or our spell selections with this character. We are going to get our final cantrip, so let's grab Prestidigitation. I think it's just a fun cantrip to have, and at this point in the game, none of these cantrips are super valuable to us, so I think that's a nice choice here. And we're going to choose 2 more 5th level spells. As usual, I like to have Rary's telepathic bond. Nothing changes here. Now, technically speaking, you could include your undead with your Rary's telepathic bond, but you are limited to 8 creatures. Just keep that in mind. So you're not necessarily getting all your undead, even if you include them in the telepathic bond. Now, whether the telepathic bond would allow you to bypass the bonus action normally required to command them is not covered in the rules, so technically speaking, no. But your DM may allow it. So what are we going to be doing? Well, we're concentrating on things like Danse Macabre. Well, how about we grab Transmute Rock at this point? It's a good battlefield control spell that doesn't require concentration, so it fits in nicely with this character. So let's just look at our preparation list as we finish up our 10th level with this character and this part of the video. Of course, we've got our 5 cantrips, and then once we get into prepared spells, this is what I've got prepared at 10th level. Mage Armor and Shield for my first level spells. Mirror Image, Misty Step, and Pyrotechnics for my second level spells. We're at the point where Pyrotechnics is a minor enough effect. I might get rid of it at some point here, but for now it is prepared. If you wanted to prepare Fireball instead, go for it. Then at 3rd level, of course, Animate Dead is prepared, and it will remain prepared through the career of this character. Then I'm going to prepare a counter spell as well. Then for 4th level, my Arcane Eye is prepared, Autoluke's Resilient Sphere is prepared, Watery Sphere is prepared, and then at 5th level, Danse Macabre is prepared, Transmute Rock is prepared, and Wall of Force is prepared. So that takes this character through Tier 2. In the next part of our video, we'll talk about levels 11 through 20, move through them fairly quickly. Got a big thing happening at level 17 with this character. I hope you'll check it out because I'm kind of excited to share it. It was kind of a random find that is really good for this particular character. So I hope you'll join me for the 3rd part of this video. You will find links in the video description and the comments down below.